cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence.
I am sorry that this gentleman is dead, but he did bring a 9mm semi-automatic weapon with 2 cartridges to what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. I've been to a protest. Yeah. Guess what? I didn't bring a gun. I brought a billboard.
I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign.
Conservatives who for years boasted about being staunch Second Amendment defenders are suddenly changing their tune following the slaying of ICU nurse and ICE protester Alex Pretti in Minnesota. Now, Kash Patel, Scott Bessent, and Kristi Noem all suggested that federal agents were justified in shooting Pretti because he had the audacity to legally carry a concealed firearm, a firearm he never brandished, a firearm he never threatened anyone with, a firearm that remained in his holster the entirety of the time until federal agents disarmed him and then proceeded to fire 10 rounds and kill him. Unfortunately, this hypocrisy doesn't stop at the Trump administration officials, but before we get to the many examples, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so it's interesting because now some of the elites in the government are agreeing with some of the extreme right, like Matt Walsh, and they're saying, if you're bringing a gun to a protest, we get to execute you. Fascinating development, but also interesting is that a lot of the right wing, or a growing number of the right wing, as we're about to show you, are saying, no, wait, I'm old enough to remember yesterday when we thought it was perfectly legal to bring a gun to a protest. So that's another split within the right. And now we're talking about gun control, we're talking about immigration, domestic policy. So that is a very interesting development.
So let's just be very clear off the bat. I know I said this once, I'm gonna say it again. Alex Pretti was a legal gun owner. The Minneapolis police chief confirmed that he had a permit to carry, plus he was disarmed prior to the agents shooting and killing him. So since that argument is out the window and we don't need to waste any time on that, Kristi Noem moved the goalpost and said that Pretti was actually breaking the law because he allegedly didn't have ID on him, which is technically true, but is it something that justifies pumping bullets into his body and killing him? No. So it's not considered a serious crime in Minnesota. Carrying a gun without an ID or permit card is a $25 petty misdemeanor ticket, not a call for execution. On top of which, the agents obviously did not know when they shot him in the back whether or not he had ID on him in the first place. So that's a little bit of an issue, isn't it, Kristi? And you also heard Noem and Kash Patel, FBI director, unfortunately, claim earlier that peaceful protesters don't show up with guns. Now, Donald Trump made that same argument to the Wall Street Journal, saying, I don't like it when somebody goes to a protest and he's got a very powerful, fully loaded gun with 2 magazines loaded up with bullets. Now, Dana Lash, former spokesperson for the National Rifle Association, disagrees with that take and said as much on X, writing that you administration people need to watch yourselves with this language. Let's make something crystal clear. It is absolutely 100% legal to attend a protest armed. I've done it frequently. The issue is inserting yourself into a federal op. Either get the language right or stop doing press. But unsurprisingly, members of the Trump administration aren't the only people showing us all that they're massive hypocrites. Republican lawmakers and members of right-wing media are as well, and here are a few examples.
He came with a gun and stuck himself in the middle of a riot. That's like I-35 is a few miles from here. People are driving 85 miles an hour on it. And if I just stood on the side of the road and just ran out in front of cars, somebody hits me, it's not their fault.
There is an obligation on the part of somebody carrying a concealed weapon, whether properly permitted or not, but especially when properly permitted. You need to use reasonable judgment and you need to follow the law. The Second Amendment does not come without some responsibility. So shame on that individual for creating the very consequences that ultimately cost him his life, unfortunately.
Don't let the left kid you with this, that this is just a normal protest where people are peacefully protesting. No, it's not. Peaceful protesters don't have 9mm weapons with 2 extra magazines.
Unbelievable, absolutely. What's particularly unbelievable about that compilation that we just showed you guys is that it started with Alex Jones, the guy who lied about Sandy Hook being a false flag by the government so they can steal your guns. And here he is making an argument that provides cover for the Trump administration as they're claiming that this public execution was justified because Pretti was in possession of a legal gun that he never even brandished.
Why don't they just say it? If you're a right winger, you can show up with a gun. You can shoot at, like if you're Kyle Rittenhouse, you can shoot a guy throwing a plastic bag at you. If you're, the guy Zimmerman who killed Trayvon Martin, he's got Skittles and I could just murder him, and it's all good as long as you're a right winger. Have a gun, kill anyone you like. Oh, you're on the left? How dare you have a gun? What do you think the Constitution applies to every American citizen? Yeah, that's what it does. If you don't like it, then take away the Second Amendment. But there's nothing in the Constitution that says only the right wing can have guns and the left wing can't have guns. So, and by the way, a lot of times the left wing, and I'm not in this group because I'm for very significant gun control, but there was a lot of people on the left who own guns who were like, we got guns too.
Yeah.
And at the time, the right wing's like, okay, attaboy, I don't mind. Now, you brought your gun and you didn't use it and you had every right to carry it. Terrorist! Kill the guy with the gun! Come on. You never meant any of it.
Yeah, Pretti didn't do anything illegal. Okay, he had the right to be there. He had the right to protest. In the video, you don't even see him protesting. You see him filming with his phone, which really upsets these militarized federal agents who don't want any accountability for their actions. So, I've seen now countless videos of ordinary people just standing there holding phones, not intervening, not getting in the middle of a official operation by Border Patrol agents or ICE, and they get knocked down to the ground. ICE snatches their phones. We're okay with that?
No, the guys pretending to be in favor of the Second Amendment, like Alex Jones, it turns out they're bigger gun control advocates than I am. Because I don't think that if you show up somewhere with a gun that you should be executed.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile's saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back. Even if you show up to a protest with a gun, I don't think you should be executed. But apparently the right wing, or at least some portions of the right, the people who lied to you and said they were in favor of the Second Amendment, go, no, how dare you? If you show up to protest the police state and the police are wearing masks and they have no badges and they're are running basically a tyrannical government, they're putting their boot on your neck, and you even possess the gun at any point, you should be executed. Okay, then you never believed in the Second Amendment. So shut up forever about the Second Amendment. You're for much bigger gun control than I am.
Matt Walsh from the Daily Israel Wire says, if you dress up in your militia costume, let's pause.
Oh my God.
Let's pause. Dress up in your militia costume. I'm sorry, he was wearing a baseball cap and ordinary clothes. What's the militia costume, Matt?
No, Anna.
You little coward. Anyway, go ahead.
No, Anna, it's worse than what you're saying. He's making fun of like people who used to say they're gonna fight the government in the woods in their militia outfits. I used to make fun of guys like that, right? So now Matt Walsh has become apparently on gun rights a super lib. So far to the left, he's like, what are you gonna show up in your militia costume and fight the police state? You won't fight the police state. The police state will murder you and take away your gun. Actually, take away your gun first, then murder you. What happened to Second Amendment, Matt? Now you're making fun of those people? Okay, and of course, you said that reference to Israel. In Israel, they do take away all your guns, and then if you criticize the government, they call you a terrorist if you're a Palestinian, and then they murder you.
If you dress up in your militia costume, arm yourself, then go out into the street with the express intent of interfering with law enforcement, and then fight back when they try to arrest you, and then you end up dead, you only have yourself to blame for that whole series of deliberate and insanely idiotic decisions. Did you feel that way about Ashley Babbitt? Do you feel that way about the anti-government militias in this country? You know?
Yeah.
Did you speak out against them? You didn't, right? Because you're a pathetic coward who does nothing more than engage in toxic, divisive rhetoric to divide the country. I mean, what has Matt Walsh contributed to this country other than garbage? But anyway, there's more.
Just real quick, Anna. So he says, if you express intent of interfering with law enforcement, well, what was all that talk about? You need the Second Amendment to stand up to a tyrannical government. I would imagine if you're standing up to a tyrannical government with weapons, that you would have an express intent of interfering with law enforcement.
Yeah.
So make up your mind, which one is it?
Well, he's not a person who's driven by values or morals or principles. How do I know that? Well, here's how I know that. This is the same guy who declared that Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero for showing up to a protest with an AR-15 style rifle.
Of course.
Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. There he is. The definition of pathetic, that's what he is. Okay. Jack Posobiec had a hilarious note on his X post in which he wrote, "Those of us who have legal carry permits know that it comes with certain requirements state by state. Having your permit and ID on you are basic stuff. No ID, that's an illegal carry. Lawful gun owners know all this and we practice it every day." So the note, as you can read, says, it's a quote from Jack Posobiec dating back to June of 2022. "I don't know who needs to hear this, but all gun laws are unconstitutional."
Now he's saying, well, did you have your papers? Because if you didn't have your papers and all of your T's are not crossed and I's are not dotted.
Execution.
Execution, this government gets to execute you.
Yeah, these people are dishonest. And they are a detriment to this country.
And Anna made a great point earlier in the show. They didn't check his papers before they killed him.
Right. They did disarm him before they killed him, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you have Bill Asaley, who used to be a lawmaker, a state lawmaker here in California. He's now a prosecutor. He's saying, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. He didn't brandish his gun. He didn't take his gun out of the holster. He didn't do anything threatening with said legal firearm that he had in a holster. But here you have individuals who are supposed to be serving the American people, justifying the slaughter of American people. So that was, by the way, so egregious that multiple gun rights groups spoke out against it. The NRA called Bill Asaley's statement dangerous and wrong. Gun Owners of America even weighed in, arguing that federal agents are not highly likely to be legally justified in shooting concealed carry licensees who approach while lawfully carrying a firearm. The Second Amendment protects Americans' right to bear arms while protesting, a right the federal government must not infringe upon. Thomas Massey weighed in, and he has remained principled on a number of matters. He says, in response to Bill Asaley, carrying a firearm is not a death sentence. It's a constitutionally protected God-given right. And if you don't understand this, you have no business in law enforcement or government. And I agree with that. Just want to remind you all of some of the other armed individuals who were celebrated by the right wing, even as they were bearing arms amid protests. You have Patricia and Mark McCloskey, who brought weapons to a protest. They came outside of their homes with these firearms and pointed them at BLM protesters back in 2020. And you all know about Kyle Rittenhouse as well. So.
Yeah, silver lining here though, Anna. So you've got the usual ghouls and gobblers in Matt Walsh, Kash Patel, and the government, right? But here we are on a domestic policy issue, one that a lot of folks care about, immigration, one that animates the entire right wing and almost everybody who voted for Trump. And there's tons of dissent even on this issue. And look, for me, I think that they shouldn't kill him whether he has a gun or doesn't have a gun. And there's a little bit of irony here that some of the right wing are supporting him more because he did have a gun. And I think that that's kind of ironic. But on the other hand, I get why, because they then empathize with him more, because they think there, but for the grace of God go I, right? And so I'll take it either way. And as usual, guys like Thomas Massie, I don't agree with him on the Second Amendment. I don't agree with him on gun control, but at least the brother is principled and he stays consistent. That's not too much to ask for.
That's exactly right. And look, let me just say, gun advocates just accomplished something huge in that the Supreme Court ruled that states like California that make it impossible to get a concealed carry permit are infringing on Americans' constitutional right. So after securing that victory, which allows people like me who might be interested in having a concealed carry permit, I'll never bring it to work, don't worry. All of a sudden, okay, even if I do it legally, even if I have the permit, I'm now putting myself in danger, because if some law enforcement official thinks that I'm maybe a little bit of a threat, they can gun me down, and you'll have I don't wanna say half the country, but you'll have a significant portion of the country justifying it, even though I didn't do anything wrong. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is absolutely crazy. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.